Hello, welcome back to Off Leash with Eric Prince. I'm Mark Serrano. Eric, you are coming from an undisclosed location over the unplugged phone, and I just, hats off to you for the technology. Our producer, Steve, can attest the fact that you don't skip a beat coming over the unplugged phone from far across the seas and on the other side of the world.
A wonderful world of technology.
It's fabulous. Today, I want to talk about NATO. Just last week, Donald Trump triggered the left, as he is so effective at doing, when he talked about NATO. Well, I just got to read this to you, if I may. Trump at his rally in South Carolina, Trump recalled how, as president, he told an unidentified NATO member that he would withhold U.S. help and encourage Russia to do as it wishes with allies that do not contribute enough to military spending. Trump is quoted here: "You didn't pay? You're delinquent? No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay. You got to pay your bills." This is classic Trump triggering the left, right, Eric?
Look, Donald Trump was correct to complain about NATO, because is it actually an alliance or is it really a protectorate? Think about if the United States was invaded, how many European countries would send troops to defend our homeland? And Trump was right to complain, because when he became president, only 5 of the 28 NATO countries were spending the 2% that they're supposed to spend on defense. Now that number has at least doubled to 10 because of his complaints and pressure, but there is still a significant number of countries that do not pay 2% of their defense budget. Now, the U.S., we are at 3.5% of our GDP spent on defense, but countries like France, 1.9, Bulgaria, 1.8, the Netherlands, 1.7, Norway, 1.7%. Norway has a website where it shows their sovereign wealth fund, which is ticking up over $1 trillion right now, their national savings account, and we can't get them to even spend 2% on defense. Trump is right to call BS on that. Germany, 1.6%, Denmark 1.7, Italy 1.5, Canada 1.4, and on and on and on.
Germany is the economic engine of Europe. The fact that's just shameful that they haven't stepped up at this point. And ironically, Poland is at 4%, which they recognize what's at stake for them.
Because they are on the leading, or hopefully not bleeding edge. But the fact that Germany has the worst readiness of almost anyone in NATO themselves. They have less than half their tanks operable, less than half their jet aircraft. None of their submarines can put to sea. It's really pathetic. And now, they have, go ahead.
And that's a sign of how much they take the United States for granted, right?
Sure. They don't feel any external threats because, unfortunately, the U.S. has convinced them that America's sons and daughters, fed by American tax money, would be there to defend Europe. And the fact is, the EU's economy writ large is larger than the United States, and we're sitting on $34 trillion in debt. Enough. Trump is right to call bullshit on them and make these guys pony up. At minimum,
and our defense of Europe our defense of Europe since the end of World War II has contributed probably a tremendous portion of that debt. Would you agree?
Absolutely. A significant amount of that spend is on defense money we really didn't have. And yes, the U.S. started with a Marshall Plan, which was brilliantly done, and it helped rebuild the economies of damaged Europe. That graciousness should have ended and curtailed a long time ago and make the Europeans defend themselves. Look, if NATO's going to be an alliance, fine, great. But don't let it be a protectorate, which is really all it's become now.
And how many troops do you suppose we have in Germany or across Europe today?
We still have. We used to have tens, almost 100,000. Now it's at least in the mid 10,000s between deployments in Poland, in the Baltics, some in Germany yet, of course, some in the UK. But again, that's an unnecessary number. It's time to let Europe be Europe.
I remember in 2017 when Trump first started holding NATO accountable, and the left, I mean, they went apoplectic. You can't talk about NATO though. You can't criticize our NATO allies. And I also recall not only was he looking for them to chip in their agreed upon amount from their defense spending to 2% of their GDP, but also paying for NATO. The U.S. funds most of NATO, right, Eric?
Yes, the U.S., it's a protectorate. It's not really even an alliance. And the last time NATO tried something on their own was to bomb Libya. And they ran out of bombs. They ran out of air-to-air tanking. They couldn't sustain anything past day 2 or maybe day 3. And that was just the Brits and the French trying to. The Italians set that one out wisely. So look, it's ridiculous. Trump is right to demand that they pony up and pay their share. Germany, really statistically and in numbers-wise, is by far the worst offender. And maybe next administration, there's ways to take that up even higher. Maybe slap another 10% tariff on every BMW, Mercedes, or other German manufactured good that comes to the United States and say, we're either going to toll you for the protection provided, or if you don't like it, then we'll opt out and go our own ways. But in America First foreign policy can require that the people that are supposed to be our partners actually contribute to the partnership.
Well, and look, it's a dysfunctional relationship. I mean, the European allies are basically welfare queens. They're welfare chumps and deadbeats. You know, I mean, that's the problem. Is it's a dysfunctional relationship. Trump is the first guy who brought some sanity to the situation. And look, you know, the left, I mean, boy, did they just go nuts. So even Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO Secretary General, in reaction to Trump's comments, and he's usually fairly balanced, partly because he knows Trump's probably going to be his next boss. And he said that Trump was threatening the security of the entire transatlantic alliance. Quote, any suggestion that allies will not defend each other undermines all of our security, including that of the U.S., and puts America and European soldiers at increased risk. Your reaction?
Well, look, the first country they should talk to about whether it makes sense to being in the alliance is Turkey, which hasn't been allied with anything NATO-focused or Europe-focused for a couple decades now. They're the facilitators of massive illegal migrant invasion coming through the eastern side of Europe. Turkey's been on its own program. Its president is pursuing an Ottoman Empire again, not that of a fortress Europe and NATO. So,
and they've been crosswise with us on Iran, correct?
Look. I don't begrudge Turkey anything. They can pursue their own interests, but their interest does not align with that of the United States or really of NATO anymore. And so whether they remain a member should be the first item of discussion, not whether, look, of course, NATO and its minions are going to lose their minds about Trump demanding that they pay 2%. So you're right. It's enough for freeloaders. It's enough for free riding. People can either pay. If they're paying for protection, then they need to pay. And if they're not going to pay, then no turkey, no laundry.
But this is what we need. We've got to get back to in 2025 that Trump brought onto the scene in 2017. You know, for the first time really in history, is accountability for NATO allies, creating some sort of rational balance for U.S. National security interests, where we're getting something out of the deal because, you know, we're footing the bill. We're sitting on $34 trillion in debt, which is going to collapse our economy at some point in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it may be. And we've got to return to that some sort of rational balance. There's a complete imbalance. And these people are the ones who have the greatest threat to them and to their borders. They've let illegals flood into their countries. They're not paying their fair share. I love the reaction from the left. And even Joe Biden, let me just give you this last quote. Donald Trump's admission that he intends to give Putin a green light for more war and violence, to continue his brutal assault against a free Ukraine, and to expand his aggression to the people of Poland and the Baltic states are appalling and dangerous. This is the same crap that we heard in 2017. How dangerous is he? He's going to head us straight into World War III. Donald Trump will. And yet he's the only one who got us out of never wars and is the only one who didn't start a new war under his watch compared to the prior 40 years.
Because deterrence and credibility matters, and both of which have been lost terribly by the current administration. And so, look, from the time Trump started complaining in 2017 about NATO spending until today, at least twice as many of them have ponied up and reached the 2% figure. Hopefully, next term, he could take it to all the NATO members, or it could be a reduced pool of NATO membership. You know, George Washington had a great statement. He said, the United States does not have forever friends or forever enemies. And so I think it's appropriate time to reevaluate who are our current friends and our current opponents. And let's constantly be reevaluating that.
Let's exit on this from this segment, Eric. Let's talk a little bit about the change in leadership since Trump started in 2017 till now across Europe. I mean, we've got a shift certainly in Italy. We've got Orban in Hungary. Talk to me a little bit about the leadership. Are there more leaders in Europe that Trump will be able to do business with when he takes over in a year?
Yes. Look, Meloni is struggling to get a handle on the migrants, but at least she has an intent. She has a political mandate to do so. Orban has held fast and won re-election in Hungary. There is definitely even in Germany, the AfD, the most conservative right-wing party, is gaining to the point that the left in Germany is trying to declare them an illegal political party, similar to what the left does here. There is definitely
got great leadership in Poland now. You've got great leadership in Norway.
Well, there was great leadership in Poland, and then a leftist guy just took over recently and has opened the floodgates on migration. So it's Europe has some issues they must contend with, but first of all, they must wake up and prepare to defend themselves. And in fact, if they focus less on buying stuff, overpriced stuff from America, they'll probably be in a better position to defend themselves because they won't be addicted to the most expensive way to deter, meaning from our vastly overpaid U.S. defense contractors and their battalion of lobbyists eluding the taxpayers of the United States. Look,
the other way, by the way,
as you see on the ground in Ukraine, some of the U.S. stuff works okay, but a lot of it doesn't. And it is not sustainable or affordable in a modern, high-tempo, state-on-state conflict, especially with rugged weather and mud and all the other actual realities that matter in modern combat. And so there's a lot of lessons to be learned from the Ukraine conflict, and I fear none of that knowledge is actually making it back into the very impermeable blockheads of the Pentagon.
The other thing I think the continent is going to have to take a look at, the vulnerability they've created themselves is with their energy policy. Angela Merkel, after Fukushima, Angela Merkel shut down 19 nuclear power plants, healthy, fabulous, strong nuclear power plants, and they've created a dependency for themselves on energy from Russia and others in the region. I think they've created great vulnerability for themselves on energy policy, which has got to be addressed.
They even shut down 3 more nuclear power plants after Putin invaded Ukraine. So,
right.
Yes, it's really madness.
What a disaster of a policy that was.
They shut down safe and reliable nuclear energy that they've been operating for decades and pivoted to sun and wind. Now, if you've ever spent any time in Germany, solar power is not a great idea because they have a lot of clouds and the wind doesn't blow there very reliably. And so they've either made themselves more dependent on Russian gas or unreliable green energy. And it's just a mistake upon mistake. And really what it's doing is it is hollowing out the best aspect of the German economy, which was their industrial base. And so all those manufacturers are leaving Germany to seek reliable energy, affordable labor elsewhere in the world, and it is going to crush the German economy. And it all falls back on the feet of Angela Merkel and a lot of those. It's sad, Mark. So many of those really idiotic policies made. She opened the floodgates for illegal migrants, first with the Turkish migration that happened, and then now with everybody else in the Middle East,
Right.
with these energy policies, or Macron in France, Theresa May in the UK, the previous Dutch Prime Minister, and even Renzi in Italy. What was a common thing? None of them had children. So none of them were thinking about what happens to the next generation. And I guess it's easier to fall for the green religion and lies, and to create our own paradise here now. So they're going to suffer. German industry will suffer the consequences, and we as American taxpayers and parents of servicemen and women are not responsible for defending them. Period.
And that's what Merkel did. She used Fukushima as an excuse to do the big climate change embrace, despite the fact that Germany will never be hit by a tsunami. It's outrageous.
Correct. 100% correct.
Well, look, I look forward to 2025, hoping for a major Trump victory this fall, so Trump can bring accountability to NATO again. Last word to you, Erik.
Look, I hope we make it to 2025. There's a lot of difficult weeks to come. There's a lot of variability that can happen this year, and so buckle up, folks. It's going to be a difficult and dangerous year, I'm afraid.
Excellent. That's it for this segment of Off Leash with Erik Prince. Coming to you from across the world over the Unplugged phone. You can find the Unplugged phone at unplugged.com/offleash. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.